Coming to you from an entrenched barricade deep in the heart of Central North Carolina. Masculine Journey After Hours. A time to go deeper and be more transparent on the topic covered on this week's broadcast. So sit back and join us on this adventure. The Masculine Journey After Hours starts here now.
Welcome to Masculine Journey After Hours. We are in the middle of our foundation series, or somewhere in the middle, or at the beginning, or somewhere. We're somewhere. We have no idea where we are. We're just doing the foundation series.
We're not at the start, and we're not at the end. So
yeah, God's not said you're done yet.
That's right.
And so, Andy,
it's a journey.
It is a journey. It's a masculine journey through the foundations. Yeah, so you want to help explain what the foundation series is, just briefly. We don't have. I know we talk about it every week. So if it's their first week and they're listening to the After Hours, just a brief synopsis.
Just think of it as our core beliefs and why the ministry exists, and really the truths that God has taught to us. That's unique, that we receive most of it a lot through the Wild at Heart, but we have other things that, as a ministry, we believe as a team that's very important. It's been life-changing to us, has really brought a lot of healing and restoration to us, and things that, you'll hear in the Bible but may not be what you have on a church page or whatever, but it's things that are important to us as men that God has used to change our life.
Right. It's foundational to our ministry. And so all the shows that we do come from somewhere within this foundation that we've been
And it's all biblically based, not just out of
or
somebody's
biblically,
book.
either way.
Biblically. That's easy for you to say. That's all.
BB Netanyahu.
That's it. That's what
we have Porky Piggery probably. No, sorry, Eddie. You did a great job with the foundation. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Short was a part of it.
It was. I tried to quantify it with short, but it's okay.
We want to make clear, but
that was.
And I think it's important every week that we say that we go back to the Bible.
Yeah.
There's teaching, which I think books are, that are really help us to see things that we don't normally see ourselves, and this is just kind of what God's brought our attention to and it's really because these are areas that we didn't really do well in teaching as a way to bring light to that place where we had darkness. So.
Oh, absolutely. I can speak from my own personal experience. I grew up in a really good church as a kid. I loved my church growing up. Not once, and if they did talk about it, I probably wasn't paying attention, but not once do I remember them talking about our topic today, which is spiritual warfare. Right? And so when I'm an adult and I go to my first boot camp and they're talking on this topic of spiritual warfare, it was life-changing.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden I had a context of the spiritual war that's been going on around me my whole life that I didn't know was there. Yep. And again, I can't say that they never taught on it. That could have been one of the many weeks I wasn't paying enough attention, right? As a kid, it could have been one of those, but honestly, I don't remember my church ever going there. And not against my church, they were loving people. It's just sometimes churches get into a rhythm and they teach on these certain topics and they kind of stay in that wheelhouse and don't really get to the rest of the gospel.
Yep.
And I think that's where my church was back at that time that I was there. And so spiritual warfare for me was a big one. Robbie, do you want to help us with we left off with agreements, and so I want to kind of start there, kind of help explain what an agreement is and what the enemy's after and how he attacks us individually.
Sure. Well, an agreement is essentially Jesus is the truth.
Right.
And so anything that's a lie is like the Antichrist. And so when you agree with something that it's a lie, then Satan now has you in a legal position of having some authority over it because you are now in his wheelhouse,
right,
in Lieville, right?
Yeah.
And so it seems innocent enough. A lot of times the lies that you believe, you think, well, I can't do such and such, or, I'm not smart enough to do such, and you make agreements like that, a real simple thing. And the truth is, God made you, fearfully, wonderfully made, designed to be able to hear his voice and read his word and all these things. And so when we step into a really difficult lie that can really, really mess with your world and your family and everything else, is that I don't hear the voice of God. When clearly the Bible says his sheep hear his voice. And so now we've gone into agreement with a lie, so Satan can somewhat block, you receiving God's voice, the Holy Spirit's speaking to your heart, And so you are now left isolated from God, which is what we talk about. The agreements are meant that very purpose, is Satan is trying to get between you and God and create a separation, which is very hurtful. The good news on that, okay, that we should speak of probably more, I should, is that they're so easy to break.
Right.
It's like Jesus, right? You need your husband, so to speak. You need that authority to come in and say, Jesus, I break the agreement. I don't hear God's voice. Jesus, I break the agreement. I don't understand the Bible. Okay? Now, granted, I don't personally think I completely understand them or even understand one letter of the Bible. However, I know my heart was made to understand it. And as I glean things like that, it's unbelievably amazing. But making agreements like that, even with your own health or anything, is just extremely harmful to your future.
Yeah. Well, just to use your example. So if you say, okay, well, I don't remember ever hearing the voice of God, so I don't believe I can hear the voice of God. I don't believe that. That's agreeing with the enemy as he's whispering to you, hey, you've never heard the voice of God. Other people hear it. You don't hear it. And you're saying, yeah, that's right. I don't hear it. Right. And so then when you do try to read scripture and you read, my sheep hear my voice, then you go, well, I must not be one of his sheep. Right. And so more isolation, further and further isolation, more down the path of the enemy that he wants you to go, and dividing you from your life source, dividing you for the thing it is going to set you free and give you healing and restoration in your life. Right. And that's what he's after in this whole thing. And it may be one of those topics, but it may be something that sounds so simple by like saying, hey, you know what? I'm just an idiot. You know, I do stupid things all the time. You know, why don't I ever learn any better? Now, there's truth that I make some bad decisions, right? We all make bad decisions. But, you know, at the core, we are a beloved child of God. That's our identity. You know, we do make bad decisions, and we are people who are learning, right? But when we start to say, you know, at most I'm going to be an idiot my whole life. I can never learn. I can never read the Bible. I can never do this. And you start using words like never and always, then the enemy's got you kind of where he wants you, right? Tied up in his lie and his agreement. And Robbie, you did a great job of saying it is a legal binding agreement unless you ask Jesus to come help you break that.
Yeah, I think too, what Robbie said, they're easy to break. And that's true. If they're mixed, if you take the truth and mix it with faith, they're easy to break, because that is really, you're believing on what God said, which is powerful than the lie that the enemy's telling you. But you do have to mix it with faith, or you could go down that other road and say, well, maybe I'm not his sheep, you know, when
right.
you're talking about hearing him. But whenever we do that, you know, it tends to change your whole view, because you begin to get a little victory into that, and you really begin to step into your identity. And as you do that, you begin to have more and more victory, and you begin to realize what really is truth.
Right, and the enemy just comes at you even harder.
Right.
You know,
Indeed,
but you get victory, you get success, and you know, okay, this is where I'm going to find life, even when it is continual. The whole time we're here until Jesus returns, whenever that is,
it's all going to be challenged.
We're going to be challenged every single day, but we can have victory every single day.
Sometimes I tend to overspeak. I don't mean that it's simple and it's easy. I'm just saying it's possible, whereas the enemy will tell you that it's not.
Right.
And if you apply the word like a doctor's prescription for your life, it will work.
Yeah, and the first piece of armor is the belt of truth, right?
Right.
And that's no accident, right? And when we talk about spiritual warfare, there's lots of other things that are part of that armor. Mm-hmm. But if you don't get the belt of truth on, you know, and
the shield of faith,
right?
Yeah. You don't get the belt of truth, your spiritual pants will fall off, and then where you at? Yeah, I know.
You're naked again.
Exactly.
Get you a fig leaf.
In the spirit of the Spirit.
Well, we're going to take this more on a personal level and talk about some of the ways that the enemy's attacked us in the agreements we've made. And Jim, you actually have the first clip of this show, and so if you'd like to tell us about the clip, wherever you want to begin with this, you go.
Well, I was actually trying to get an edge in word-wise with those guys. But you reminded me of when we have a boot camp, we come under attack.
Mm-hmm.
And for years, I was saying, well, apparently I'm not that important because I'm cruising right along and there's no attack. I did finally lose a toe to
Well, let's see. Your basement flooded how many times when you're at
that
boot
was
camp?
true.
You know, I've
just
got a
didn't
whole
see
list
it.
of stuff that happened. You know, you may have made it to camp, but you were the most attacked at camp most of the time.
I think you made an agreement that you're not attacked.
Yeah, that's right.
that apparently I did.
Yeah.
And it's easy to make the agreements. And you said you can break them, and yes, you can, but not without God's help.
Right.
If you try
Right.
to do it on your own strength, as with anything in your own strength, it's not as likely to be successful.
Yeah, you're not going to get a long-term thing from it. You're not going to get long-term freedom.
No.
And so, Jim, you have a clip from Secondhand Lions, one of our favorite clips, actually.
I'd be surprised if it or one other is not the most common, and I use them both regularly. But this is the bar scene, and this is getting out of the hospital after Hub.
Yeah.
I'd want to dub him.
Yeah, dub him Hub, and then you'll remember you remember who he is.
And how many hundreds of times have I gotten that wrong now? And there's an agreement.
It is. And I was a voice
It's
of the
probably
enemy.
only
right?
dozens. But and now I'm Hub.
Hub McCann. Yeah.
Is a warrior's warrior, and he's old, just had heart problems, just got out of the hospital, goes to the bar to eat some barbecue, which he probably shouldn't have with a heart condition, but he's that kind of guy. And listen to this, and we'll be talking at the end about part of why I identify with this so much.
Here we go.
Hey, old man, how's that barbecue? Give me some.
We're busy. Don't want to get lost, all right?
What did you say?
Here's a perfect example of what I've been talking about. He's been given everything but discipline. And now his idea of courage and manhood is to get together with a bunch of punk friends and ride around irritating folks too good-natured to put a stop to it.
Hey, who do you think you are, huh?
Just dumb kid, huh? Don't kill him. Hub McCann. I fought in 2 world wars and countless smaller ones on 3 continents. I led thousands of men into battle with everything from horses and swords to artillery and tanks. I've seen the headwaters of the Nile and tribes of natives no white man had ever seen before. I've won and lost a dozen fortunes, killed many men, and loved only one woman with a passion a flea like you could never begin to understand. That's who I am. Now go home, boy.
Get out your knife.
Yeah. Now, boys, you're fixing to let those teenage hormones get you into world trouble. Garth, did I ask you to butt in? You just come out of the hospital. Well, hey, there's only 4 of them. Yeah, but, well, look, you fight this one first, and then I'll let you fight the other 3 after, okay?
Yeah. Watch this, kid.
Now, you better pick that knife up, because, son, you're going to need all the help you can get.
Come on, Frankie. Get him, Frankie. Cut him, Frankie. Get him, Frankie. Get him. Get him, Frankie. Cut him.
Shoot. All is trick in the book.
Oh, okay.
You're holding it wrong, son. Not like this. You always do it like this. Smooth. All right? Try it again.
He said they're teaching him how to fight with a knife against him. This is extremely amusing, but it is going into this, he is down because I'm old and I'm useless. And that's really where I've gotten to in many ways. And I have, I'm right now in the midst of a major spiritual battle. And it's fighting for someone I love. And it's a battle I know that God's won it, but I'm losing the experience I have like he did not. He was still a mighty warrior. And I've had my times of being there. But now I feel like, well, that's over. And it's not. And that's really an agreement I've made. And like I said, I look at what I'm fighting now, and I don't think I've had any bigger battles than this one. and it is something that will be won. But there are times when I want to just go jump in the foxhole, cover up my head, and get away for a while.
Yeah, it's harder, as you get older, and we're all, if we had the camera, most of us are getting much older than we were when we started the show. But as you get older, not only does society kind of dismiss you, you have a tendency to try to start to dismiss yourself and listen to the enemy and say, well, I've passed my purpose. I'm past the time. I don't really have a whole lot left in the tank, whatever that agreement sounds like. And so it's what I loved about the clip with Hub is, he at his core, when he's pushed to it, he knows who he is. And I think there's times that things have to happen in our life, Jim, that you're describing, that pushes that place to let us know and remind us of who we really are.
Yeah. And that was the appeal this one had for me. And it really is addressing my agreements and I'm no longer a warrior. Well, that's even in the sage stage. You still got to be a warrior. You still got to be a king.
Yeah.
Never was a cowboy, but I liked Ranger a lot.
Yeah. Well, you could have been one or the other. Yeah. Cooler pond. Well, even if you liked Lord of the Rings, which I know you did, Gandalf was definitely a sage, but was there any doubt he was a warrior?
No.
Exactly, right? And so on all those stages, you continue to keep the previous ones. You just get an additional one as you go on. And we'll get to stages eventually in our foundation series. But who else would like to share on some agreement stuff that either you've had victory over or that God is working with you currently on? Grant, do you have something?
Yes. I'm saying have to work with time.
Mm-hmm.
Have to let things sit for a while and live through it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Sometimes time gives you
Lord.
perspective. Yeah, in the Lord. Harold, you want to share anything?
Well, I'm being pushed by my buddy over here to share a story that I talked about before we started. I think sometimes that we have to recognize that we have a commitment and that we've got to live up to that commitment in spite of the fact that it may cost us something that we don't want to pay. When I was a student at Auburn in the fall one year, Wake Forest came down to play a football game at Auburn. When the cheerleaders were coming back on the track to begin the second half, they grabbed up a stuffed tiger that was placed against the fence down there. I saw it. I jumped up out of my seat and started down. I got blocked about halfway down the steps, and I thought, you could get thrown out of school for what you're fixing to do. And it's like, but I got to do it. So I hurried on down. I vaulted over the fence onto the track. I ran down, and I tackled the Wake Forest guy that had the
deacon.
The deacon.
The demon.
The mascot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was early 60s. They didn't have the big stuffed head like you see today.
Well, it's probably tougher to tackle someone without a big stuffed head.
He was just a tall, skinny guy in a coat and tails. Well, I tackled him and up against the fence, and he was yelling, "What do you want?" I guess, this crazy guy. I said, "I want that tiger." He said, "Take it, take it." Well, when I tackled him, I tore the head off the tiger. So I picked up the two pieces of the stuffed tiger and started looking for a hole that I could crawl in, and there didn't seem to be one. So I started back down the track.
Hold that tiger.
So I start back down the track to go back to my seat, and I see a patrolman standing there, and it's like, oh, no. But this president of the student body was an acquaintance of mine. We had known one another back when we were in high school. And the three of us converged, and the policeman just laughed. And he said, "Don't worry about it. Go on to your seat." So I went on. And so about 10 years later, I was down in Jacksonville for the Gator Bowl. And on the bus riding out to the stadium, I saw this young lady that looked familiar to me. And I said, "Excuse me, but weren't you a cheerleader back in the early 60s?" And she looked up at me and she said, "Yes." "And aren't you the guy?" And I said, "Yes." We knew one another because I had been a part of the spirit committee, and I won't go into what all that means. But, the fact is that I believed in my school, and I wasn't going to have it be made sport of if I had the ability to stop it. And so, regardless of the fact that there was a potential cost that I didn't want to pay, I had to go and do the fight that was before me. And we'll face that same kind of thing. And I'm glad you mentioned Charlie Kirk a while ago, because the impact that man has is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. Darren, did you want to share a little bit on the agreement?
Yeah.
Stuff that God's been working with you?
Yeah, I mean, so lots of agreements that God and I have broken. And to Robbie's point, it is easy to break them spiritually. It is hard to get past where you've been believing the lie for a long time. And so you may have to keep going back after it, right? And that's kind of where I find myself. And the lie changes just enough to feel like it's something new. But with regard to Charlie Kirk, for instance, or I've got a couple of friends that have been successful pastors all their life, and, they've blessed thousands and thousands of people, and they're retiring. And I'm not 100 years old like Harold, but I'm close, I'm within 40 years of that. Yeah. So, and I found myself the other day just praying, God, I give you the keys to my heart. You can unlock anything you want to unlock. It's your keys. And within about 13 seconds, I heard Jesus say, "Stop comparing yourself." And I was like, huh. And so I started digging into that. And so I had to break that agreement with comparison, that I don't compare to a Charlie Kirk, I don't compare to a Sam Main or a Robbie Dillmore, or I don't compare to, you name the person, right? And and God showed me this picture, which he often does show me kind of pictures. And he showed me this picture of basically myself standing in a mirror posing to see if I measured up to the person who's posing next to me, kind of. In other words, look, I didn't create you to be that person. I created you to be you. And so the sooner you get to be you, the quicker we'll make whatever impact we're going to make. But the time that you waste comparing yourself to someone or anyone else other than Jesus himself is wasted time, seriously.
Thank you very much for saying that.
Mm-hmm. And actually, I love Darren. You are the absolute best Darren Coon there is. I would say very unique, but I don't believe it very unique.
Yeah, wow. We're going to use that soundbite a few times.
We're each unique, and we're each made the way God wants us. And we often think, oh, yeah, I should be more like, and I've done it with Robbie. So, man, I need to get up at 4 and spend 2 hours talking to God. Well, I get up at 4 because there's a cat chewing on me, but I don't spend all that time in prayer.
I know of at least one toad's not chewing on.
Ow.
No, I'm just kidding.
But it's we're not supposed to be somebody else. And
Absolutely.
That's a point that you made very well, Darren.
Yeah, absolutely. You absolutely did. Robbie, you want to share something?
Yeah, I have a struggle in my life with, comparing essentially, my family with other families, and reflects on, essentially I wasn't a good father, I guess, because I made all sorts of choices that had to do with my career back in the day and whatever, and I can come up with 1,000 shenanigans, essentially, to make the case that Satan's trying to make against me that just is not true, right? But and it's funny that it feels so true. Like this has to be, all the evidence proves that clearly, you weren't the father that you needed to be. And again, it's a matter of, okay, what does the Bible tell me? And trying to get in there to go, okay, I know it feels so true, and Darren couldn't be more right. Because you break the agreement. I know how to break through. Jesus, I break the agreement that I wasn't a good father. That with your help, clearly I wasn't everything I should have been, and but as far as love my kids and those kind of things, then I need to see that, wow. And so it's a battle, but I can't help but relate to Wild Hogs. That doesn't matter how many times they knock me down, I've got to get up, I've got to ask Jesus to help me break the agreement, and I got to grab onto some truth there.
Yeah, and Numbers chapter 30 goes into this from the father's perspective, and it in Darren's Revised Version, basically God says, look, if you've made an agreement with your enemy, your father can come in and break the agreement, but he's got to know about it. That's the key. You have to tell your father. He's got to know about it. Same thing with Jesus. Jesus is our husband. He can also break those agreements, your husband or your father. And so we have two people in our corner that are willing to help us every day.
And he does help us every day. It's just whether we accept that help. And as you guys talked about, it is hard to let go of the things that you feel like you've been conditioned to believe your whole life, or big segments of your life. But holding on to the truth of what God says about you is what matters, not what the enemy throws at you. Go to masculinejourney.org to register for the upcoming boot camp. November 20th through 23rd, we will talk about this and so much more. And God will be there doing some amazing things he always does. We'll talk with you next week. Let God love on you, love on someone else,